Patrick, I got to ask you a question. So I don't think this is you because you said the hand that we're about to do is from day 4. Is that right?
Correct.
So did you talk to me during the main event?
No.
Okay, you didn't. I had a guy that came up to me. So I'm playing in day 3, and there was a guy that was behind me, and like I'm looking. I don't know. Whatever. Like there's this big pot going on, like in the table behind me. Some people have gotten up, and whatever. I'm involved. I'm not really paying attention. And then somebody, whatever happens. And he turns to me. I think we go on break, and he turns to me. He's like, "I want to call this hand in that I just played." This is at like the end of day 3, and this is the guy like behind me. So I thought that this might be you, but I guess it's not. But I never heard from that guy. Apparently, I asked Michael G, and I guess there was never a submission. But okay, so let's go to day 4 here. Day 4, so you are in the money, right?
I'm in the money already. This is the last hand before the break.
Day 4, WSOP.
At the 4,000, 8,000 level.
So this is the first level then, right? Because
first level, yeah.
So how many chips do you have?
At this point, I have 727,000.
Wow, 727. So you are almost at 100 BBs. At this point, I would say maybe the average probably was like maybe 550?
Yeah, average was 550.
Yeah, 550. Oh, so Hero has 727. Okay.
So under the gun is short. He has about 175,000, and he min raises to 16,000.
Yeah, you gotta. I mean, this is the difference between this stage and early on in day 1, day 2 is now you gotta like be hyper aware of who's short and stuff. So UTG with at 170. So should I do this in blinds? I mean, whatever. People can figure out. UTG at 175K, which is about just over 20 blinds. Min raises, right? To what, 16K?
16K.
Okay.
UTG plus 1 flats.
Okay.
I looked down at ace queen of spades, and I decided to 3-bet to 51,000.
So what position are you in?
Plus 2.
So it's like one right after the other.
Yeah, right.
And you go to 51,000.
Yeah.
The only thing that I'm going to say here, this is actually somewhat awkward, I think, with ace queen suited. If people, I mean, I know you have an overlay from somebody in the middle, but if people listen to my podcast where I went over day 2, and I am no tournament expert, especially at these stacks, but I mean, I've been playing live poker for 15 years. I mean, I know this stuff, but I mean, I'm not playing day in and day out at these exact sort of effective stacks of like 20 to 25 blinds. But if you listen to my podcast from last week, I had a similar situation happen where a guy had opened from under the gun, and I had flatted with ace queen suited, and I'd said how it was sort of a troubled stack to be up against with ace queen, unless you're just gonna 3-bet call and you're happy to call with it. Now, if you're saying, are you going to 3-bet call here? Like you 3-bet and under the UTG jams, are you calling?
Yeah, I was ready to call the under the gun raiser.
Okay.
If he jammed.
Are you happy about that?
I wasn't too happy, but I also didn't think he wanted to put a tournament life on the line. So I knew he was. I thought he was more timid and more scared. So I honestly thought he was going to fold.
No, I understand that part of it, but if you, I think going into that type of setup, you want to be in a situation where you can leverage so that the only decision that he has is all in. And then when he does go all in, you use what you just said about him, you can fold. Meaning you can 3-bet fold ace queen in a spot like this, where you're putting in 51, he has 175. It just seems like with a call in between there, the pot's starting to get large. It's only going to be 125 as a shove, and then it's hard to fold getting 2-1 with ace queen. So that's the only thing I'm saying. It's somewhat of a troubling stack when you're seeing a guy from early position off of 20 to 25 blinds open, and now all of a sudden you have ace queen and you 3-bet, and then you get committed because usually it's not doing well against a 4-bet jam. But okay, so you 3-bet to 51,000, okay?
Folds around to under the gun, thinks forever, and eventually finds a fold.
Okay, so each UG folds, and now it gets to the guy from +1.
And I honestly thought he was folding, and he called.
How deep is that guy, by the way? You didn't say.
He's deep. He has more than me. I think he has 880,000.
Okay, so +1. who covers you. So he called a min open from a guy at like 22 bigs. You squeeze, which should be really strong from +2. The other guy folds and he now calls. Okay. And it looks like the pot is probably going to be 102, I don't know, maybe like 150, something like that. Somewhere around there.
The pot right now is 138.
138? Okay. Okay.
So the flop comes over 7 of clubs, 6 of hearts, 2 of hearts.
7 of clubs, 6 of hearts, 2 of hearts. Okay.
So I'm thinking this is a fairly good flop for me, for my range. He checks. I decide to bet 76,000. Little more than half the pot.
That's a big bet in a tournament. That's certainly a big bet in a tournament. I mean, I just want
smaller.
Yeah, I just wonder, like, it's like one of these things. Like I said, I'm not a tournament expert with a lot of these sizings. This is a weird setup, like you said, right? You've got a guy coming off of you have a UTG opener with a very sort of 4-better fold stack, and then you've got this guy that covers you flatting, and then he double flats you. So it's really a weird setup. I just feel like a more efficient. I think you can, if you want to run some barrels and run this guy off of like 8s, 9. I mean, right off the bat, some of the hands that might fit into like that flat type of range from this guy who covers might be like 8s, 9s, something like that, and then he double flats you. So I don't think that 76 is going to get him to fold off anyways, and you can go like 50, or 40 and get him to fold out some random shit, and then use some cards, on the turn as a bluff. So I think it might be a little bit large here.
Yeah, I was afraid of that, and then and then on the turn.
So he calls. So he calls, right?
He calls, and he calls rather quick.
150. So it looks like the pot now is like 290.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
And then the turn, I was ready to give up at this point. And then turn comes the King of Hearts, because I thought it was a great card for me.
Well, I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give up on good cards that I think would scare away like 8s, 9s, and 10s. I'm not going to just give up.
Well, I was ready to slow down, is what I was going to say. Not give up, but slow down.
Yep.
And then the King of Hearts comes, and I'm saying, all right, this seems like a great card now to bluff at. Or just to continue my story with. He checks again, and I wanted to go on the bigger side here because I wanted to get him off these hands. I didn't want to build a pot, and I ended up building a pot. I bet 200,000.
Wow. Okay. So a couple things here. I actually thought about your email last night when I was in bed. For whatever reason, it popped into my head, just based upon what I had seen in the main event this year, and then sort of like going back in my sort of mental memory of past main events and just playing in large tournaments and large field tournaments. And a couple things that I would say about this right now is that when a lot of money starts going in these spots, when things change, everybody becomes very, very polarized. So if you're going to bet here on the King of Hearts, this is just like a situation where you're almost saying like, I have a nut flush or I'm running a bluff. Now, that's not always the case, but especially when you get to the river, I do know what's going to happen, but let me go through a scenario where, let's say he calls again, and then you bet this huge amount, and then he calls again, and then the river's a brick, and like you bet another huge amount. Like, I'm not saying you personally, but a lot of guys aren't betting anything for value on a run out like that, like say the river's a 3, unless they have the nut flush. So they're super polarized. What does that mean? It means that you're actually getting called down a lot. Now, so there's that part of it. I think I'm not a huge fan of this bet here on the turn because I think that you can play this in a more efficient way. And I talk about this on Crush Life Poker a lot, which is the delayed double barrel. Meaning you are going to be checking this card a ton, I think, in a lot of cases, on a heart. Not an offsuit king, but on a heart, when the heart comes in. So if he has a hand like 8s, 9s, 10s, something like that, and you check it back on the turn, and then the river comes out, especially if it's like another Broadway card or, some other blank, and now he checks again. I think that is a spot where you can get some folds with risking less. Checking back what appears to be a card that you're going to check back a ton on the turn, and then betting the river as a bluff, the bet, check, bet line when the front door flush comes in, is going to risk less. And then, of course, because you don't just get to go balls to the wall here with a huge bet on the turn, because he's going to have some flushes too. So whenever I set up a delayed double barrel, like line like that, bet, check, bet, you have to be prepared that when you check back turn, sometimes he's going to bet the river and you just fold. So I wouldn't have taken your sizing on the flop. The other thing too is that if you bet smaller on the flop, you're probably allowed to double barrel this card more frequently, I would say. And you don't have to go as large. But now you have just like really, really polarized yourself. And I got to say, like, if you're called here, I don't, even if you end up with no showdown value, if you're called here, you're just basically just praying to God that he has like tens with the 10 of hearts and he's not folding. As opposed to having a big hand like a set, or he's just sandbagging a flush, So that's my take. So you bet 200,000, and what happened?
I bet 200,000.
Yeah.
And he called again pretty quick.
That's the problem, man. Like, it's just like, oh God, like I don't even know. And now you've chunked in like almost half your stack, right? Like you've put in 320,000, 40 blinds, but you're only at 80 blinds. I mean, that's the other thing too with tournaments too. So +1 calls the 200,000, this huge bet. So now the pot is like 690. Okay.
At 690. At this point now, I'm not giving him tens or jacks anymore. I kind of put him on the set. And then the river comes a 9 of clubs. He checked to me again, and I thought for about 3 or 4 minutes, counting out my stack. And I was like, I think I can get him up a set if that's what he has. If he puts me on the flush, I'm going to represent the flush. I'm going to go with it now.
So before you say before you say what happens, right? So now you said to me on the turn, you don't think he has like tens or jacks with the heart. You mean you think he has something bigger when he calls?
Yeah, I think he has bigger than tens the way he calls.
So what do you think he has? Like a set?
Yeah, I think he has just either a set of sevens or a set of sixes.
Well, I mean, obviously he could have a set. I wouldn't try to be bluffing a guy off of a set all that often. Just as another note, though, too, he does have the nut flush here sometimes, too. So this is why, like, you want to have at least a heart. This is why, like, okay, if you had ace-queen with the ace of hearts in your hand, you could make a case where it wouldn't be so, you're running that stiff bluff. But without the ace of hearts here, without the queen of hearts, you put in 320. I mean, you still have like 400,000 if you just get. I mean, I know you don't have any showdown value, but still, that's 50 blinds.
That ran through my head.
Yeah.
As I was thinking this through, and then I didn't put him on any type of flush draw because I figured he would have played back at me or at some point especially bet the river. So I didn't put him on the flush. And I didn't think he would want to risk his tournament life either because, I'm putting in a big bet here, big size bet here. So I didn't think he would want to do this without the nuts or.
And so I assume +1 checks here. It's 7-6 deuce with 2 hearts, turns a king of hearts, you double barrel. River's a 9, okay.
He checks again.
Uh-huh.
And after about 4 or 5 minutes, I bet 340,000, leaving myself with 60 behind.
With 60 behind?
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my God! What, you Stu Unger? I mean, it's just Jesus. Leaving with 60 behind. So if you're wrong, you're leaving yourself with 7 blinds. You still in it?
Not even.
Oh my God!
The blinds went up.
The blinds went up. Wow, that's fucking crazy. So you bet. So Hero bets. What is it? 340. 340 into 690. because he's got 400 left. I already told you what I thought about it. Just one other little thing of note here too is you'll sometimes see like Stephen Chidwick do this, where like these guys, I don't know, it's probably not that deep. There's probably a lot of people who get knocked out, but anytime you're near a pay jump, right? Like if you're near a pay jump, and sometimes these pay jumps get, like say you're into day 5, right? The pay jumps can be like 10, 15, 20,000 and up and up and up. And if you're near a pay jump, and somehow you're going to take a line like this where you're betting all in or bluffing all in or something like that, it's not a bad thought to leave some chips. You obviously left 7 big blinds, but I've seen him leave like 1 chip. Like say he was running a triple barrel bluff on the button, and then he's representing the nuts. He's very polarized, so the guy's never going to raise him the 1 chip all in. There's no point. If I have a bluff catcher, I'm not going to raise you even like a small blind. I'm bluff catching you. If I call and he's bluffing, he gets like 8 hands to ladder up. So that's a little bit of a thing here too. So you go 340, okay?
And he tanks for a good 10 minutes. He goes 6 minutes into the break. And the whole time we're saying it makes sense. You have the ace high flush. I'm not good enough to fold. I'm not good enough to fold this.
Right. So do you agree though that you are basically and again, this is my other question too, is that your line for value is almost exclusively the ace high flush.
Yeah.
I don't know if because like you'd have to, because again, like if you put the whole hand together, again, going back to pre-flop here, it would be kind of a spew, I think, to make like a Broadway 3-bet here against a guy who's min-opening off of 22 blinds. Like you don't really have like Queen 10 of hearts, Queen Jack of hearts, something like that. It would be a very, very stretchy type of thing. And then like I'm always very concerned with Queen Jack of hearts. Okay, let's say you were in there with Queen Jack of hearts, you bet the flop and the guy called. Now you turn a flush. It's a high card that's the king of hearts. Now you've got the second nut flush, but it's a card over a 7. You bet huge again and then he calls again. You got to start thinking about like, am I betting Queen Jack of hearts here for value? So if you even end up with it, so your line is just like the ace high flush or a bluff. So okay,
right.
And
that yeah.
Uh-huh.
So he thought long and hard, and pretty much kept saying, "I'm not good enough to fold. I'm not good enough to fold this. And I know you have the ace high flush, but I'm not good enough to fold." Everybody else at the table thought I had the ace high flush because they all stayed. Nobody left. Because we're about 5-6 minutes into the break at this point. And somehow he found a call.
And?
He had a set of 7s.
So he flopped top set.
Flop top set, yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. And the other thing, too, is that, like, if I'm your opponent, I'm never folding. I'm going to play it exactly the same way that he probably did. And I know when you bet the turn like this, that I'm just going to have to be prepared to call down on rivers that I don't boat up with, that maybe aren't 4 flush rivers. You know what I mean?
That was the other thing, too.
Like,
I was hoping maybe I can get a 4th heart.
Yeah, I gotta be honest with you. I don't know if a 4th heart is necessarily good for you. Because the only way that a 4th heart is good for you is if you specifically think he has a set. On this texture, on 7-6 deuce turns a king of hearts. Like, most of the time, I would think he would either have a flush already or another heart. I don't know. You took really, really large sizing. So, guy has a set. And then what happened? Did you at least, you didn't punt? Did you punt off the last? What position are you? Oh, now you're going to go into
5,000, 10,000.
No, you're in 5,000, 10,000 now, and you only have what? You only have
6 bigs.
So you might have got knocked out right away, huh? Going in through the blinds.
Well, I ended up I was in the big blind with Queen 7 of hearts. The short stack actually put me all in. I called. I flopped 3 hearts.
From where did he put you all in?
Button.
Oh, okay. So you had 4 big blinds, and the guy just moved you all. I think that's probably fine. But
I ended up calling. He had 9-8 off. Flop came over 3 hearts with a pair of 9s with a 9. Turn came a king. River came a king. There was a flop king on board.
Yeah,
and he ended up having a boat.
He made a boat. Well, no lack of heart there. But I think what you can take away from that, though, is that you are very, very polarized, and I would try to get my sizing in check a little bit, and you risked a lot.
Yeah, the whole tournament for 4 days, I never bet that big. I don't know why I decided to go that big.
Yeah,
There.
yeah. Anyways, thanks for the call. Appreciate it.
Thank